Hello everyone and welcome back to another Flutter tutorial, and today we are going to finally make our Tippy app functional. We are going to implement, or should I say give it some functionality. So this is where we left off. I don't know if I changed anything, but um, I have a center here. I don't think I did that in the last tutorial, but it isn't really necessary. I just put that in there to make sure everything is centered. But from where we left off, I think we have pretty much the same thing. Okay, so in this video we are going to go ahead and then implement the functionality of this app. So first things first, let's look at this. We need to perform some calculations to get the total bill amount and also to get the tip amount. And before we can get whatever value is being typed in here, we need to create something called a controller, a text editing controller. That is probably the only way we can get whatever the user types in here, and then we can use that to do some work. So to create a text editing controller, I'll just go on top of the list of bools, and we are going to say text editing controller. That's the type, and then I'm going to call this bill controller. So whatever you type in here next is going to be the name, okay, of that controller, and this is going to be equal to the constructor text editing controller, like so. We are not going to put anything inside. So there we have our bill controller. Now this could be called anything. You could call it controller again. Now where do we put this controller to get the text? Well, in the text form field. So let's head on to our text form field right here, and so just as we had style keyboard type text align, if we go in there and type controller, we have a controller property and we can pass in our bill controller just like so. So this guy is going to help us capture whatever is typed in there. Now let's head back up, yeah, right here. Let's break this down into a few things. First, we would need to capture the value, so we are going to use a controller to help us do that, so we need a variable for that. We need to get the index of these values so that we can return the right tip amount, so we need another variable for that. We need a variable to also do what? Hold the total bill amount and the tip amount. So we are going to create a lot of variables here, and again, if you're watching this and like, that's not how you do it, the code is so messy, yes, I know. The purpose of this is not to be so technical, and I'm just trying to get beginners to understand. Okay, after this we'll go ahead and look at how we can refactor this code and make it more presentable. So baby steps. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a variable, and the type of that variable is going to be double, and I'm going to call this bill bill amount, let me call it that, and I'm going to initialize this to 0. Okay, so just like that. Even though it's a double, it isn't necessary to do this. Okay, it isn't really necessary, but we can do that. Now that we have this first variable, this is a personal thing, I just want to move this. Okay, there's nothing wrong if it's there. I just want to create everything below just like so, and then I'm going to give some space so that I can actually see what I'm doing. So after the bill amount, we need to create, so this bill amount is going to be what we are going to store the value of whatever the user types inside here. We are going to store it in this value. Now we are going to create the variable to hold the total bill amount, and that's also going to be a double, so let's call that double. And then this is going to be total bill amount, and we are going to assign another 0.0 to this. So this is a double. Then we need to get the tip index. Okay, so you remember this. Okay, we need to get which one of these, so whether it was 0 was 1 was 2 was 3. Okay, we want to get this tip so that we can return 10. Wait, why do I have 10 10 10? What? So guys, let me just quickly check that. What happened? I never changed it. Wow. Anyway, so let me quickly change that. So the next thing we want to do is we are going to create an int value of type, what do I call this, tip index or something. Sometimes variable naming can be very difficult. So by default, I'm going to set this to 0, and I'm going to create another double, and this I'm going to call the tip percent, and I'm going to initialize this to also 0 or 0.0. So just to be consistent, let me add the other 0. And then finally, I'm going to create another double to hold the tip amount. So this tip amount here. So this is going to be tip amount. And this I'm also going to assign a 0.0. Just like this. So we have these variables created. Now, if you don't know much about variables and you are kind of confused what does all of these double type ints and those kind of things, I'll leave a link in the description, and also I'll sort of leave something here to guide you in the top right corner to that video. We had a video where we talked about all of these things. So now let's make use of these variables in our code. So we are going to go down all the way to where we had an untap function, if I can find it. Yeah, right here. So this is our button, and so when we click on our button, what do we want to happen? So that is where we have this on press. So you can see the elevated button. So when we press it, what should happen? Okay, so inside these parentheses, we are going to tell it what to do. So when we press this button, we are going to capture what the user has typed into this field. And the way we do that is, remember, the variable we created to take that in is called what? Bill amount. Okay, and we are going to say that now I'm going to type this in, and then I'll explain what is going on. So I'm going to say double.parse, and then inside here, so let me close this, not that way. Come on, what's going on? And like that, that's what I wanted to do. I'm going to take away the source, and I'm going to type in the bill controller .text .trim, like this. Now what this simply means is that, so I'm going to start from the inner part. Remember I said the bill controller is the guy that is going to help us capture whatever is typed in here. So once we have a controller or bill controller, we can access the text. So the text is just going to be whatever was typed inside here. Okay, so if we typed in 10, then the text, what we're going to return is text. Now the next thing here, trim. So what trim does is we are trying to get rid of any empty spaces. So in case the user types in, let's say 10 and presses space, okay, the trim just removes that extra space so that there isn't any extra space. If there's no space, then you have no problem. But if there's a space, it will remove it. And then this double.parse is simply converting whatever value we got from the user to a double. So think of this as a converter. It takes whatever we get back from here. So if we put in 10 here, now note that whatever we type inside, even if we enter a number, it's still of type string. It's not actually a number, so we have to convert it to what we want. Okay, we need to convert it to the actual value that we want. So the way we do that is we use the double.parse to do that. So the double.parse is basically going to take whatever result we have, convert it to a double, and then store it in our bail amount. And we already know that this bail amount is of type double because that's what we created. Okay, I hope that wasn't too much or any confusion. Now the next thing we are going to do is we are going to try and then get the index of these ones so that we can easily map them and then return whether it's 10%, 15, 20, or 25. And the way we would do that could be a little bit tricky, but then let's see. So I do not even remember the name of the variable. What did I call it? Tip index, I believe. Yeah, so this tip index is going to be equal to, so our list of bools, remember that. Okay, so we are going to say that was underscore selected, and then we are going to access a list method using the dot operator, and then we are going to call index where, and let me finish this and try and explain this. And I'm going to pass in basically element. So let me just simply call this element, or we could change this to anything we want, but for now let me just leave it and then try to explain. I hope I don't confuse anybody here. So this index where, okay, if you read the documentation, if I can get this out of the way just for the moment, if you read the documentation, it says that the first index in the list that satisfies what the provided test searches the list from index start, so from the beginning to the end of the list, and the first item, and the first time an item is encountered that matches the test, so it becomes true, and which is of an index 0 is returned. Okay, so for example, if you look at this, so it says var notes, which contains do re mi re, I believe, and then we say notes, so that's a list index dot where, and then we have a new note here. Okay, so this note, whatever element we capture here, does it have an R? Does it start with an R? So what will happen is it starts from the beginning. So do has no R, so it moves to the next one. Re has an R, so it returns the answer as. Can I move this a little bit more so I can see this properly? So it returns the answer as the index as 1, because this is 0 and 1. So at index 1, it is able to find what R. Now, if you look at here, we have a similar thing. It's, oh, come on. We have a similar thing that said starts with what? R, and then we have 2. So this is just saying that we should start at index 2. So 0, 1, 2, and then it checks. So from here, it looks, and then we can see we find that it is at 0, 1, 2, 3. So index number 3 has that, so that's why we have 3 here. Now they're also saying that if it doesn't find anything, it returns a negative 1. Okay, so we are checking whether the element matches any of these. So you can see K, there's no K here, so it returns a negative 1. So in our case, remember that this selected is a list of bools, so the true false we had. Okay, so we are simply saying that if this element, which could be the bools, whether true or false, in our list. So let me quickly go back up here. So remember, we have true, false, false, false. So each one of these is an element. So in our condition, we are saying that if our element, okay, matches the element, then give us the index. Okay, so for example, the first element here, so let me bring this back. The first element in our list here is going to be what? True. So that's true, match that, yes, and true is at what? Index 0. So it's found it, sorry, so it finds it and returns index 0 in here, and that's, we are able to capture what? The 10%. Now if it iterates, so if it moves on to the next element in the list, so if we tap this, it is going to check, does it match that element, which is going to be true, so it will return that. So for whatever element we find here, just return the equivalent from what? Our bools. And remember what we did here. So anytime we move in, the next one becomes true, and this condition is going to find the true and then return it back to us, the index at which it was true. Now I hope that wasn't too much and confusing, but if it was, I'll just simply say don't worry so much. As we go on, you understand more of these things, right? So now when we select any of these, we'll be able to get the index at which it was selected. So that's going to be the tip index. So if I select this, then that's index 0. If I select this, index 1. Again, if you don't know much about lists, you can go back to our previous video where we covered a bit about lists. And then finally, how then do we retrieve the actual value, which is 10%, 15%, 20%? The way we do that is, I think we created a variable called tip%, and we are going to do this. We are going to open parentheses, so that's going to be a list, and I'm going to enter the decimal forms of these inside this list. So let's say 0.1, okay, a comma, 0.15, a comma, 0.2, a comma, and then 0.25. okay, and then I'm going to open another square bracket. Don't get confused, and I'm going to pass in tip, okay, tip index, right? Then I'll close this. So we are simply saying that whatever this index is, so if this is 0, okay, we want to access the 0th item in this list. Okay, so the 0th item is this guy. When this becomes 1, then the first item, or the item at position 1, is this. Remember, in a list, as I said in the previous video, it starts from 0. So this 0, 1, 2, 3. So when this element finds itself here, it's going to return 0, 1, 2, 3. So this becomes 3. So we are saying 3 here. So we want to return the element at index 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. You get that? Then we return 0.25. Okay, I hope that wasn't also too much. Then I'm going to go below again and probably just give one little space, and I'm going to type so now we are going to calculate our tip amount, and then we'll also calculate our total bill. So let's get the tip amount. So tip amount, or should I say tip percent? No, I think I called that tip amount. I cannot remember my variable names. Yeah, tip amount. Yeah, so tip amount is going to be equal to, so again, you're going to see me do this double dot parse like I did earlier for the same reason. Okay, it's just for the same reason. We need to make sure whatever we do, we are converting it to a double. And then inside the brackets here, I'm going to open some brackets again, and I'll explain everything I'm going to do after we are done. So we are going to call our bill amount, not total bill. So our bill amount, so whatever we got from here, so if the user entered 10, so we are capturing 10, which we've already stored in here. Okay, so we are going to capture 10, and then we are going to multiply that value by the tip percent. Okay, we're going to multiply that by the tip percent, and then I'm going to say, so outside of these internal brackets, so the yellow ones, so just outside there, I'm going to bring in the dot operator, and then say to as string. So let me move this a little bit. So to as string as fixed, sorry, and then I'm going to pass in 2, and I explain what this means. So what we are simply doing here, so starting from the inner part, so consider the blue brackets here as for the parse, so you can see it ends with blue, and the inner part here, this yellow. So we are saying that the bill amount, so if it was $10, we pick $10 and we multiply it by the percent. So that's just how we are going to find a tip, okay, the percentage. So 10% times the value, whatever the answer is, that is going to be our tip amount, as simple as that. Now we know this could sometimes result in like multiple decimal places and things like that. This method here is basically going to help us specify how many decimal places do I want. Okay, so if there's ever going to be more than 10 decimal places, this is just saying give me two decimal places. That's all I need. Okay, to 2 decimal places, that's just all. You can specify how many you want, 1, 0, whatever, but I just need 2. Okay, and then could I do this a little bit? Yeah, and then the last thing we are going to do is going to be for the total bill amount. Okay, I hope this is not getting in the way. So the total bill amount, which is this guy, is going to be total bill amount. It's going to be a similar thing, equal to double dot parse. So not double and then parentheses, but double dot parse, and then our source here. So just like I did before, we'll close this, and inside here open some brackets, and I'm simply going to say the bill amount. Okay, so the bill amount plus the tip amount. Where is tip amount? Sometimes we are so lazy, we are relying on IntelliSense. Okay, and I'll do the same thing by calling toString as fixed, and I'll pass in also 2 in there. I know this is getting in our way, but you can see it's the same thing that I'm doing here. So basically the same reasoning. So this is going to convert whatever we get here as the end result into a double. You can see this is a type double. So we take the bill amount. Okay, so remember, if you spent $10, that's your total bill, and we've gotten the tip amount. So 10% of $10 is going to be what? 1. I believe my math is right. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not that good at maths. Anyway, so whatever we get, so let's pretend there's 1. We are simply going to do what? Take that 1 and add it to our total amount. So we would see that we are paying this total amount, and this portion that we've added is the tip amount. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And before we can go ahead and actually make this reflect in here, okay, so what we'll do is, let's go down a bit, and you can see, did I overdo that? So you can see the total bill amount here. It's just we wrote this in ourselves, and we need to put in our variables so that they can actually reflect the values. So what I'll simply do is I'll get rid of this, and then we still want to show our dollar symbol, but at the same time we still want to add a variable. So we are going to use another dollar symbol to enforce our interpolation, string interpolation. So here this is going to be our total bill amount variable. Okay, and we are going to do the same thing here. So another dollar symbol, and then this is going to be the tip amount, just like that. And if we save this, nothing should actually change on screen, because the tip amount is 0.0 and then the total bill amount is 0.0. We declare them on top. Now if I go ahead and I click here, we are getting some error because one, nothing is passed in here. So remember I said this earlier, we are going to build this little by little. We'll see how we can make sure that if this is empty, it shouldn't work. So I'm going to skip that part for now, and then let's pretend we have some value. So let me make sure that I have saved this already. So let's make sure we have some value. Let's say we spent $1,000, and then we want to give a 10% tip. If we click here, nothing happens. Okay, something actually is happening, but the way we can let this UI reflect it, remember we have to use what? Set state. We've talked about this a few times already. So this is something that might trip you off when you might perform your calculation. You are sure about everything, and then you go, you finish, you click, nothing is happening. So we now have to tell Flutter to rebuild this using the new values with whatever we get from here. So I'm going to cut these, so Control X, and then I'm going to call set state and then dump them in there. So remember, set state is that guy, so you can already see the reflection here. So set state is going to mark all of these as dirty, if I can put it that way, and then tells the framework to rebuild using the new values, because if we calculate anything here, whatever value we get, it's not the same thing, and it has to rebuild to reflect that new value. Okay, I hope I'm not making so much noise and making sense rather. If there's any confusion, feel free to leave a comment in the description or in the comment section, of course. Oh boy. So now that we have this done, we can go ahead and save this. Let me actually reload this so that I can clear all the values, nothing in there. So let's try this again. So we spend $1,000 and we want to give 10% tip. That's the default. I hit calculate, and then you can see we have 1,100, and then the tip amount is 100. So this is what we did. So you can see the total bill amount plus tip amount. So the total bill amount is just 1,000, as you can see, and then the tip amount is 100. And so we add them together to get 1,100, meaning that if I'm paying this, I'll give the person what, 1,100, and then the 100 serves as the tip. Maybe you might not want to agree with this and probably make them separate. In that case, do not add. Okay, that will just be as simple as that. But this is the way I'm going. And of course, the tip amount, we simply multiply 10% by the value. So 10% of this is 100, I believe. So this is like 10 over 100 times this value. That is the calculation. You cancel out, and then you will get 100, and then you can add it back to get what, the total bill amount. And if you go ahead and change this to 15% and hit calculate, you can see that updates. We change that to 20%, hit calculate, that updates. 25%, we hit that, and that updates. Okay, so guys, this is going to be the end of this tutorial, but not the end of this app, because like I said, we've done this in a very bad way, but hey, the app is working. And now we would focus on trying to clean this code to make sure that it's healthy, so that you can see how you would work around anytime you are working on apps, how you should refactor. That is always going to be where refactor your code to make things a little bit easier. Like I said, this is just a tiny application, but how many lines of code do we have? 211. Doesn't really make sense. Okay, so in the next set of tutorials, we are going to look at how we can clean this. We are going to look at how we can validate this such that when it is empty and we hit calculate, we can get some warning telling us that provides something. Okay, so please stay tuned and then watch out. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If there are any suggestions you would like to give to me, please do so in the comment section. As always, this has been Happy Cat, and like I said earlier, if you enjoyed this video, please like and then subscribe, and of course share.